Hey everyone, Urban Fish Keeper here. I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, I want to take you through a build that I did I think it was last weekend that I did it, which is just an internal filter. And the question you may ask is, well, why did you go through all the effort of building an internal filter when you probably could just have put a hang-on filter on, or if you needed another filter, or maybe get a canister filter. Now, my primary objective was, one is I wanted to build something, so I wanted to play with the tools. The other thing is that I wanted to have an internal filter that I can drive with air, because I drive the majority of my filtration in this room. In actual fact, everything in this room is now driven by air. And I wanted a internal filter that's driven by air was the first thing I wanted, other than a sponge filter. I wanted to have the option of being able to put in whatever media I want to put in, depending on what I'm trying to achieve in that particular aquarium. And the other option was that I could move it and shift it from aquarium to aquarium as I needed it. So I'm going to take you through the build of building an internal filter. And I've built this filter out of acrylic. Right, so in today's build, I'm going to take you through building one using a little submersible little internal pump like this one. This is an Aqua One Maxi 101. I don't think you get these anymore, but there's a lot of other brands out there that are these little tiny filters, and this one only does, I think, up to 450 liters an hour, and it's got a little regulator in the front that you can adjust the flow from 220 to 450 if I'm not mistaken. Low wattage, uses, I don't know, 6 watts. It's not quite EIM spec, but for the purpose of building something like this to show you guys, that'll work. The other option, of course, is you can build it like I've built my previous one, is using an air uplift, and I'll run you through using an air uplift, just the things that you have to watch out for when you want to build it with that. Talking about the air uplift, let me just show you some video of the one that's I'm currently testing at the back here. In the discus tank, which is the build I'm going to go through today. Now, the one in the discus tank, if you have a look at this video, you'll see that one is running off air, and the uplift that I'm using there is the same kind of uplift that we would use on the Madden filters, and I've done a video on that. You can have a look, but in particular this one is the jet uplift, or the improved uplift for the Madden filter, and increases the water flow. So on that filter at the moment, it's running at about 240 liters an hour. And you can see there's quite a decent flow that's coming out of that filter. Also, you would have noticed in the video on that filter, I have 3 compartments, or probably, sorry, not 3 compartments. I've got an in, I've got a media compartment, another media compartment, and then an out. So in total, there's 4 spaces. The one I want to run you through today only has 3 spaces. It has an in, it has a center for media, and it has an out. Now, you can build these as big as you want. You can either build as I'm going to do today, which is a hang-on the inside, or you can have it that it fits the complete, and I'll just put this aquarium down here just for demonstration purposes. Or you can build it so that it fits the complete side of your aquarium from top to bottom, and it can fit in there. Now, what I would say is that if you're going to build one that takes up that whole section and fits in, I would probably run a tiny bead of silicone around the edge, the inside edge, as in the edge facing the water, just to prevent any tiny fish or anything getting in behind it, because you probably won't build it, you know, to the absolute millimeter that it fits 100% in here with no gaps on the side. There probably will be a little gap. So just a little bead of silicone around the bottom, and then if you ever want to take it out, you just take a blade, cut that little bead of silicone, and you can take it out. Now, this is the same, it's not quite the same, but if you were building and because the other option is you could just say, well, I can build an internal filter out of glass. And yes, you could. You could have an inlet compartment, you could have a media compartment, and you could have an outlet compartment. And you could build that with glass. And halfway through this build, I'll show you what that effectively would look like. But you could do that. The downside to glass is that it's in there and it's permanent, as where these, either with a little bead of silicone if you're building it full size, so top to bottom, right to left, you could cut that little bead of silicone, pull out the whole acrylic filter. If you're doing a hang-on like I'm showing you here, when you don't need it in that aquarium, you pull it out, put it in another aquarium, and use it wherever you want to. All right, so from a build point of view, I've just taken some acrylic offcuts that I've had so that I can show you the build. So obviously you need a front. So this is the front, and you'll see all the tiny little holes. That's the inlet for the water. You've got one little hole, which is the outlet, the bigger hole. I've cut the back out of clear acrylic so that I can show you what it looks like when it's assembled. Then you've got sides. So you need two sides as well. Then you need a bottom for it. And then you need the compartments to create the compartments inside it. Then you also need, if you're going to build what I'm building here, the hang-on, you need two pieces to go onto the back of it so it can hang on to the glass of the aquarium. Excuse me. Now, just on the hanging on the aquarium, and I'll talk about that later again, important thing to remember is if you're not building it full size, and you're building like I've done in the discus tank where it just hangs on the back, it's very important to remember that when you do a water change, if you do quite a big water change on your aquarium, all the weight of the water that's sitting inside that filter is hanging on your glass. So if you're using thinnish glass, I think this is 6mm glass on here, there's probably 10 kilos when that is full of water with its media. So that weight is pulling on the glass. So just be aware of that. If you're doing a big water change, then just siphon a bit of the water out of the filter. All right, the other equipment I'm going to be using today is I've just got a square, and that just helps me to keep the sections up when I'm gluing them. Then the acrylic glue that I use is Acrylic 105, which it's like a water, and that's what will bond the acrylic. The other glue that you can use is Acryfix 1R0192. Acryfix 1R0192. Now, I do use this. I used it on the other filter. And this is very good to use when you want to make sure that your seals are perfect, that you can have no water leaking in or leaking out. And the reason I mention that is most of us don't have access to a laser cutter in order to cut our acrylic. So, and especially if you've got offcuts, you're going to end up cutting it probably on a hacksaw. There are other ways of cutting acrylic using a sharp point and then bending it on an edge to break it on that sharp cut that you've made in the acrylic. So it's laser, that's the other method. A lot of people will probably have access to a bandsaw, and you can cut your acrylic on a bandsaw. The holes you just drill with a normal drill, and you drill according to the size that you need. Now, in my case, for full disclosure, I have cut this. So I'm fortunate that I've got just a little hobby one that I play with. I've got a hobby CNC router. And what I can do with a CNC router is I put the measurements in and I tell the machine to go away, and it then cuts what I need. So I get reasonably good cuts, but I don't get laser cut. So it's not an absolute smooth cut on the surface. It's a little bit rippled, obviously, from the bit that's running and cutting it. So that's what mine is cut on. It makes it quick for me to cut them when I need them, when I'm doing these different projects. All right, the other stuff, so that's the glue. The other stuff that you'll need is some syringes, all right, to apply it. I use two types of needles for the Acrylic 105, which is very thin. It's like water. I use a 27 gauge needle. I don't know if that'll show up. It's a 27 gauge needle. It's really thin. And then for the Acryfix, I use a syringe for that as well because it's quite thick. And if you do it in the tube, it's got a tendency to go everywhere. So I use a 19 gauge needle for that. The other thing that you'll need is you'll need some alcohol wipes or wet wipes or something just to clean off the edges that you want to glue. And obviously you need a pump to pump the water out of your filter. If you're going with an air method, then you need to create an uplift, excuse me, and I would recommend going with the jet lift. If you have a look in one of my previous videos, I go through how to make a jet lift, and that's the one that you saw in the video of the one in the discus tank. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I am just going to change the camera so that you can actually see what I'm doing, and then I will start the build. All right, well, let's get started. And don't worry, I'll speed this up so that you don't have to sit watching me do this for an extended period of time. Okay, so that's basically what it looks like so far. And as you can see, that's just the the front section with the dividers in it. It's probably a bit difficult to see it because it's black and it's reflecting, but hopefully you can see it like that. Okay. Now, if you were building this out of glass and you were going to build it in your aquarium, then this is what it would look like, and I'll show you that now. All right, so if you were building it out of glass and it was going to be permanent in your aquarium, then you would build up to this stage. Right, so you've got the front. Okay, there's the front, the inlet holes, the outlet, and then you've got the dividers. So effectively, the water comes in, goes down, comes up through the medium, whatever you're putting, whatever filter media you're putting in, and then goes back into this compartment where it is pumped back out into the aquarium. Now, obviously, if you make this bigger, you can have a lot more compartments, and you can, have a lot more media in it. But the principle remains the same. The divider for the top is solid to the top, so the water has to go down and then goes through whatever medium. The next divider is lower, and important for this one, make sure that this one is lower than your water level. If it's the same as your water level, the problem is then that you have to have enough water in here to increase your water level for it to flow back over again. So that should be lower than your water level. And then it flows over and back into where the pump is, or the air uplift is, and pumps it back into the aquarium. Now, if this was being made out of glass, so if we'd done this out of glass with silicone, and we wanted to make this a permanent filter, we would now glue. If this was out of glass, it would obviously be the same width. We would make it the same width. We wouldn't have the sides. So you wouldn't have the end sides, it's not necessary, and this would then effectively glue onto the side. On that side, glue around the bottom. These back sections would be glued siliconed in, and that side siliconed against the glass. So the side around the bottom, and then the dividers touching would be, and then it would be permanently in. What we're doing here is we're making it so that it can be removed. All right, so let me finish this one. Let me flip the camera over again, and you can see me just finish off this bolt. All right, so let's finish it off. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the base, and then I will put on the back. And what I'm doing now is I'm just running the glue all the way around the bottom as well, on the inside. All right. It is also at this stage that if you want to make sure that it is really secure and it is fully watertight, that you would now use the Acrylic. You would put some of this into your other syringe, and then with a thicker needle you'd start running that around. Before you put on the back, you would run that around the edges, just to make sure it's 100% waterproof. All right, where was I? Okay, so I finished gluing it, and the reason I've got the clamp on here is I just put this little back section on here, 2 minutes ago, so the glue is still wet because I used the Acrylic, and I don't want it to come off when I show you it hanging on the tank. So when I was building, you would have noticed that for the back section, so when I put the clear back on, I used Acrylic on the ends, the compartment dividers. Okay, so the ends and the compartment dividers, I used the Acrylic, and I also ran a small bead of the Acrylic on the base. Now the reason I did that was that it is really difficult. I mean, everything else was bonded with the Acrybond 105, and then I used some of the Acrylic to go over it to make sure that it's sealed and it's effectively watertight. Now, the reason I didn't use the Acrybond to put the back on is it's really difficult to get the syringe and the needle all the way down to the bottom when the compartments are so small. And that's the only reason. If these compartments were bigger, then I would most definitely just have used the Acrybond 105 first, and then I would have used the Acrylic afterwards like I did for the rest. But that's the reason why I did it that way. The other thing is, you'll notice that I've actually got the pump in, and the pump's in, and it is connected up with the outflow. So that fits in there perfectly. And if you look at it from this side, so you've got the inlet here, all these holes, it comes in, and then you've got the outlet on that side. And if you look at it from behind, you've got, this is the inlet, the water comes in. So the first one, the divider, compartment divider, is flush with the top, so the water has to go down, goes down through the bottom, and you'll see there's a gap at the bottom. I normally make those gaps anywhere between 40 and 50 mils, depending on how big, how wide, how deep, but normally 40 to 50 mil is that gap at the bottom. It now then goes down, flows underneath through the media. So in there I would put a coarse media at the bottom. Then above that I would put probably some sponge, a thick layer of sponge, something like that. But you can use various different, you can use ceramic noodles in there. You can use I use a lot of these little bio blocks that you can buy. You pop those in there. In the first compartment, what I do is I put in some filter wool. So that just takes out all the fine debris and that kind of stuff. And then the middle compartment is where I would put all my main biological filter media goes in there. And if you're doing polishing pads, if you want to put in some carbon, you can put activated carbon in there as well. Put that on the top so it's easy to get it out and replace it if you have to. So the water gets forced, so it goes down, comes under, gets forced through, or runs or flows through the filter media, and then it flows over back to the pump that then pumps it back into the aquarium. So effectively that's how it works. Now I've got the clamp on here, let's hope it works. So effectively what would happen is, that's it. You'd hang it on the back of your aquarium. Now remember, you can make this whatever size you like. You can make it as wide as the aquarium. You can make it, if you made it right down to the bottom, as I said earlier, put a little silicone bead around it. It's there. If you ever want to take it out, you just slice that. And in really big aquariums, so if I had a really big aquarium, when I say big, let's say a 4-foot aquarium, and I wanted to try and use this kind of filtration, I would probably build one on the one side, and I would build one on the other side. And what I would do is the one on the one side, the water intake is through the top. So exactly what I've done here, the water intake, glue is still very wet. The water intake, so if that's how it was standing in the aquarium on the one side, water intake through the top, and the advantage of the top intake for me is that it skims the surface of your water, and it takes off any of that protein film or any of the film that you have on the top of the water. When you've got skimming off the top, that disappears and goes into your filter. On the other side though, if I was building these and I had one on each side of my aquarium and they were top to bottom, in other words, they were all the way down to the bottom of the aquarium to the top of the aquarium, and I had one on each side of, let's say, my 4-foot aquarium. The one on the other side, I would use exactly the same design, except I would make the inlet holes at the bottom. So the one on the one side skims the water surface and takes everything off the top and filters as per normal. The one on the other side pulls any of the debris and stuff at the bottom of your tank into it. So what you would do is you would go with exactly the same design. You would have the holes at the bottom. But remember now, if you have the holes at the bottom, your first chamber, so this is the chamber with the holes at the top, we want the water to go down through the media. If you have the holes at the bottom, right, so these holes are at the bottom now for the other side of your aquarium, you want the divider, this divider here is now reversed. So this divider needs to be against the bottom. So this one is all the way down. Therefore, the water runs through the holes at the bottom, goes over, flows over into this compartment, okay? And then this one here comes up to the top. So this one is down, this one is up. So it will go holes at the bottom, it has to come, this divider right down to the bottom, holes at the bottom, it can't go underneath, it has to come up. It goes over, it goes through the filter chamber, right? Goes through the filter chamber and then it goes underneath. Okay, it goes underneath to either another compartment or to the pump directly. All right, so this one will come to the top and this one will go to the bottom. So you just reverse it. So it goes, so that I'm clear, the holes at the bottom, this is down to the bottom, it comes over the top, goes down through the filter media and out through the bottom to the pump. Now, what you would do is, because you've got this one up here and you've got your pump on that side, I would make sure that at the bottom I maybe use a really coarse sponge or something, just in that gap at the bottom, which is that 40 or 50 mil gap. So if I was doing in a 4-foot aquarium, one of these on one side, one on the other side. The way I've made this now, once this is dry, and I want to use it, I'll put the filter media in it, I'll run it on one of the 64 cubes or one of the 100-litre cubes, I'll let it do its work, and then if I need it in another aquarium, I'll just move it around as I need it, but I'll keep it running so that it's always active. All right, so that's it. That's how I build an internal filter. Yeah, quite straightforward. If you're using air, the only thing to remember with air, as in the discus one, so in this one, if the water drops down to say that level, right, it's not a problem. So long as the power head or the submersible filter is covered, pump is covered, it's fine. It'll pump water and so long as water is flowing over, it's all good. So it doesn't have to be right up to the top somewhere. When it comes to using the air system, what is really important is that you want the water level in this last compartment, the compartment that returns the water back to the aquarium, the water level should be up to at least over the bottom connection of the bend. So ideally up underneath the bottom of this bend is where you want the water level. As the water level drops, the efficiency of these air uplifts drops significantly. All right, so when you look at that, at the video I inserted at the beginning, the one that's in the discus tank, you will notice there that the distance between the outlet and the water, there's not a lot of distance, and that in order for it to be efficient. So that's the only thing that you have to remember, which also means you then have to calculate and make sure that you've got your, the height. You'll have to make this slightly shorter if you made it this size. You need to drill the appropriate hole for the pipe to fit through where it returns the water. So the air one can be done. It's probably a little bit more, it's not tricky, but you just have to keep more of an eye on it. The one with the little power head is quite straightforward, and you can move it around and use it from aquarium to aquarium. All right, and as I mentioned before, the glue, I mean, if you, not the glue, the glass, if you're using the glass method, you can build these out of glass. I wouldn't build one hanging out of glass. If you're doing a glass one, you would probably just do it permanently in the end of the aquarium. But I prefer the ones that I can take out and move and use as I need to. All right, guys, that's about it. So that's your internal, how to build an internal filter. They're really versatile. You could put a lot of different things in it. You know, you can put peat bags in it. You can put activated carbon in it, acrylic noodles, ammonia removers, nitrate removers. You can put in whatever you like, and you can run it for a short period of time and then pull it out and hook it on another aquarium and run it that way as well. And if you do what I've done here, if you put the hang on at the same height, then it means when it's hanging on the inside, it also means that you could still get your glass lids on. It will be resting on this, but you can get the glass lid on. You don't have to, you know, it's not a question of you can't use the glass lid. And of course, the advantage of having these is that you get the surface skim as well. All right, guys, thanks once again for watching. To all the subscribers, thank you very much for subscribing. Really appreciate it. All the comments, thanks a lot for all the comments and the questions. To one of the subscribers that emailed me about his filtration around his discus tank, he's basically doing very similar to this, and he's doing it built in to the side of his aquarium. And we've been having some conversations around that as well. So good luck to him, and he's going to keep me updated on how that build goes. So enjoy, guys. Give it a go. If you've got some spare acrylic, or go down to the acrylic store where they've got offcuts. I just grab mine out of an offcut bucket and pay a couple of dollars for the offcuts, and then go home and cut it to size or do what I need to do with it. But a lot of the times they'll cut it for you there as well for a few dollars. So, you know, give it a try. Build a couple of these. It's good fun. Happy breeding, happy fish keeping. Have an awesome week. Stay safe. Urban Fish Keeper out.